Hi everybody, this is Lindsay from windingroadcrochet.com. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to make the carrot stitch. If you like the stitch tutorial, please remember to subscribe and hit the like button. You will also be able to find the written pattern for this tutorial on my blog. There are links in the description box below. This pattern was inspired by an actual Morocco tile stitch that I saw that was done in white, orange, and green, and I thought it kind of looked like a carrot, so I adjusted it and tweaked it a lot and made this carrot stitch. To do this stitch, you're going to need a pair of scissors. I'm using a size H hook, but any hook to match your yarn. And then I'm using 3 colors, a base color, the green, and the orange for the carrots, and these are all a medium weight or a size 4 yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot here. Now please be aware this isn't what I would call a beginner stitch pattern, though I am going to go through the stitches very slowly. It would be a little bit more intermediate stitches that we are working with. So to get this stitch started, we are going to chain a multiple of 3 plus 4. So for every carrot that we want on our row, we are going to need 3 chains. So say I want 4 carrots, that's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12. And then I'll add an additional 4 chain, and that would be 16 chains total. For row 1, we are going to double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook and in every chain across. This will give us a total of 14 double crochet. And if you are a fan of foundation stitches, you would just work 14 foundation double crochets instead of the chain in the first row. Continuing on to row 2, we will chain 2, turn, and just work a double crochet into each stitch across. Before you complete your last stitch of row 2, you are going to want to change colors over to orange. You could just do this by yarning over the last yarn over that stitch with the orange instead of the white. And we are going to have a lot of tails to weave in the end of this stitch, just because we are changing colors a lot. And we'll go ahead and continue with row 3 using our orange. We'll chain up 2 and turn so we can start row 3. For row 3, we are going to double crochet in the very first stitch. This is because I do not count my turning chain as a stitch. We will chain 1 and skip the next stitch. And then into the 3rd stitch, we are going to do a spike cluster stitch. And then to do that, we are going to work into the base of this 3rd stitch here. So actually working into the stitch underneath the 3rd stitch. And I'll show you how to do this. We will yarn over, insert our hook into the base of the 3rd stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Keep your tension very loose on your yarn. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Now we're going to repeat that 2 more times. We will yarn over, insert our hook into the base of that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, keeping our tension very loose, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, leaving us with 3 loops on the hook. Once more, we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the base of that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. So it's just like mixing together a cluster stitch and a spike stitch if you're familiar with those 2 stitches. Yarn over once more and pull it through all the loops on the hook in order to close up this stitch. And then now we are going to go ahead and chain 2. We will skip the next 2 stitches and work another spike cluster stitch into the 3rd stitch, and we'll repeat that all the way around, working a spike cluster stitch into every 3rd stitch. So we've yarn over and we're pulling up a loop, yarn over and pull it through the first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull up another loop, yarn over and pull it through the first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over once more and pull up our very last loop from the base of that stitch, yarn over, pull it through 2 loops on the hook, leaving us with those 4 loops, and then yarn over once more and pull it through all 4 loops to pull that cluster stitch, the top of that cluster stitch together. Then from this point again, we will chain 2, skip 2, and make another spike cluster stitch. So I'm finishing up my last cluster stitch. We will chain 1, skip the second to last stitch, and work a double crochet into the very last stitch. But before you complete this stitch, you want to go ahead and change over to your white yarn again. So just complete that stitch with the white yarn. Once again, we're going to clip our orange yarn, leaving a long tail to weave in later. Make sure we leave a long starting tail for the white so that we can also weave that in later. For row 4, we are going to chain 1 and turn. Now this row is all about getting the chains of the orange covered up. We're just trying to hide them in this row. To do that, we will work a single crochet into these chain spaces around the cluster stitches. Work 2 single crochet into the first chain space. Just working 2 right in this space here, and then we're going to completely skip our cluster stitches and work 3 single crochets around the next chain space. Number 3, and that is going to start kind of covering up those orange segments in between our cluster stitches. And we will just repeat that all the way across, working 3 single crochet into each of our chain spaces in between our cluster stitches. In the last space, we'll work 2 single crochet to even off the edge. And there you have it. We're covering up that orange chain as best we can. If you wanted to work 4 in between each, you definitely could, because it's not going to affect the next row. Also, I'm taking out this very last single crochet because we are going to go ahead and switch over to green for the next row. We will be making our carrot tops. So we'll yarn over with the green and pull that through. I'm going to chain 2 here just to hold everything in place, and then go ahead and clip my threads again. Just the white thread. Now we will move on to our next row. So we will work a double crochet into our first stitch, and then from now on, the only thing we're going to work into is the top of these cluster stitches from row 3. So we are going to work a double crochet, chain, double crochet into the top of that cluster stitch. So basically we're working a V-stitch into the top of a cluster stitch from that previous row. So we're completing our first double crochet, chain 1, and then work another double crochet right into the top of that spike cluster stitch from row 3. And that is our carrot top. Now we will skip all the single crochets again and work the exact same stitch into the top of the next cluster stitch. So a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet into the top of the cluster stitch. And that is our second carrot top, and we are going to go ahead and repeat this all the way across into every cluster stitch. We'll work our last V-stitch and then simply double crochet into the very last stitch. And before we finish up that last stitch, we're going to change back over to white and get ready to transition with a few rows of white in order to make another set of carrot stitches. So there you have our cute little carrot stitches, little pointy carrots. So for our next row, I'm going to chain 2. Just to separate these carrots a little bit, we are going to be working in between our double crochets. So double crochet into the first stitch, and now we will double crochet in between the first and the second double crochet of the previous row. We'll do 1 double crochet in the chain space between our V-stitch, and then 2 double crochet in between the 2 sets of carrot tops. And we'll repeat that all the way across. So 1 double crochet in the chain space in our V-stitch of the previous row, and then 2 double crochet in between our carrot tops. So 1 double crochet here, and then 2 double crochet in between the carrot tops, and we will do that all the way across. And then simply do 1 double crochet in the last section and 1 double crochet into the very last stitch, and that will have us with 14 double crochet across the top again. And then to set us up for our next row of stitches, of carrot stitches, we are just going to chain 2, turn, and work a double crochet in each stitch across. And the row we are making now is going to work exactly the same as the second row. So after this row, we will go ahead and start another row of our carrot stitches using the orange. Then you'll repeat a row of white single crochets, a row of green V-stitches, and then your white double crochets. And here's an example of this stitch done in a few different rows. It's really cute. I wouldn't do a full project in it, but I do think it'd make a really cute accent for the bottom of a market bag. I really hope you would like today's stitch tutorial. If you did, make sure to subscribe and like this video, and let me know in the comments below what other stitch tutorials you'd like to see.